I did mention that there was a surprise. Can we? Oh, you're on chapter 3. Awesome. Um, Tara, how are you feeling about the surprise? Hey, Arkansas. Let me start by saying Tara was the lead singer, performer, and writer. I know I don't always get all the words right. You can correct me. At Cirque du Soleil for the Kuza show. She was the first Asian performer as well, and I'm super proud of her. She's so fabulous. You guys have to just go online right now while you're listening and Google Tara Baswani, and you'll see some of her photos. She's like insanely beautiful and talented. Anyway, she was leading Kuza, and you were on the show for how many years total?
I want to say 8.
8. Yeah, that's a long time.
And at one point, long time.
I mean, those shows are phenomenal. We've seen a couple of them as a family. And how many were you doing a day at one point?
Oh, well, some days we had 2 shows a day, and at some point I clearly recall doing 3. But I was also composing and writing in the middle, so it was a really awkward period of time.
That's crazy. And she's had physical challenge. I mean, it's a physical job, right? Physical, spiritual, emotional, all of it. And that's what I love about you. You pour all of it into your work.
No,
so,
thank you.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to read just the last kind of 2 pages. I'm doing a book reading. I need to look up every once in a while and make sure I don't go.
Hold on. I got you for the book reading. Hold on. There we go. Here.
Okay. And her voice is so much nicer than mine. I should really have Tara do the reading.
This is not true. And I will be proving this by the end of this year to everyone who is sitting on this call with another surprise gift. So everyone just watch out for Miss Emily.
Okay. Oh, are you my background music for the reading? That is so cool. You guys, we have background meeting. Okay, so we're going to read from A Defining Moment, and this is a little bit of Tara's story. So I had shared a little in the earlier part. I mean, I have to leave something good for you to read as well. So you'll read the first half. And then everything changed on December 16th, 2012. That day, Tara was seated in London's iconic Royal Albert Hall, taking a short break between rehearsals. Sliding down on the red velvet seat, the willowy singer rested the back of her head on the soft cushion. She gazed admiringly up at the expansive, fluted roof of the historic building. That evening, the cast would be performing in this majestic space where the world's greatest artists have made history, from Rachmaninoff in the early 1900s to Eric Clapton and David Bowie in more recent years. Suddenly, she became aware of an insistent buzzing. The indigo screen of her mobile phone lit up with alerts. Something in the media was referring to as the Nirbhaya rape had begun to rage across India like a firestorm. Frowning, Tara tapped a link and began to read. In the next few minutes, as she digested the story of a 23-year-old physiotherapy intern's gang rape, Tara felt her stomach muscles tighten in horror. The sheer brutality of the attack had shocked the nation. 6 men not only had gang raped a young woman, but had tortured her using an iron rod to tear apart her insides. Much later, when the young woman was found on the side of the road half dead, her shredded intestines lay on the road beside her body. When Tara's eyes landed on a photo where the girl had been found, her body went cold and deathly still all at once. Those abominable acts of violence had all happened just 2 blocks from her parents' home in India. Over the next few days, even as she threw herself into 2 performances a day in the Great Hall, Tara followed the news as Delhi came to a standstill. The savage nature of the Nirbhaya crime had galvanized unprecedented national outrage and an outpouring of protests over the long-standing issues of sexual violence and treatment of women in India. And since Indian law did not allow the press to publish the victim's name, the young intern had become publicly known as Nirbhaya, which means fearless. By the end of the week, the endless stream of news from back home had awakened long-forgotten memories from Tara's own childhood. Once again, her heart pumped furiously in her throat as she remembered walking in the capital's streets at night, quickening her pace as shadows shifted menacingly around her. Late that night, an unrelenting question pierced Tara's heart as she soaked in a hot bath. The things I'm choosing to sing about, the platform to which I have access, how can I use it to shift the needle? How can I use my skills to help? That week had become a defining moment for the artist. For over 2 decades, she had honed all that she had to offer creatively and musically as a designer and performer in the entertainment space. Now she deeply felt the need to create for purpose. And as thousands of Indians flooded the streets demonstrating in her hometown, Tara saw the opportunity to use her talents to facilitate betterment for women. She thought back to her teenage years when, even though then she had sought to use music and the stage to express discontent with all she perceived was wrong in her society. She reflected on the years when she had felt typecast and somehow restrained from singing about the things that mattered most to her. Now, as a mature and accomplished professional, coming off 6 years of performing with Cirque du Soleil, Tara felt her creative offer and offense fuse as her social legacy emerged, unveiling a new vision for her next chapter. So the beloved singer-musician who had nurtured so many of the young women's voices in the troupe resigned from Cirque. For the first time in her life, completely uninhibited in expression and delivering against no one else's brief, Tara threw her head back and laughed as she felt her spirit soar. "I will lend my voice to the voiceless," she declared to the empty room. Quivering in unchecked awakening, her slender fingers found her computer's keyboard and Tara began to type. "In and through artistry, I will create for impact." I will leave the rest of the chapter. I have goosebumps, actually, just reading that about you, Tara. How privileged am I that I get to know you? Yeah, Stacey, exactly. I was just thinking the same.
How privileged are you? How privileged are we to have you?
Oh, hi, Remy. We still have to meet. So Remy was the next word in that chapter, but you guys will have to read the book to learn more about him. But now I'm going to hand it over to you because you offered so generously to give us a little surprise.
I wanted to share a little story, and I know there's a whole bunch of folks that I've just seen joining in, and I never realized because this is my first live. I first met Emily at Seaton Montreal on a beautiful Hatch Night supper. Shout out to Hatcher. And we spent the evening just hanging out and chatting together over supper. And I had one of the most beautiful conversations of my life. What struck me the most that night was I had one of my guitarists sitting with me because I was going to perform that night. It was one of the last times I actually performed on stage in what has been a very long time. And no one noticed this very shy Quebecois guy sitting over there, except for the woman who sat across from me. And she spent all evening trying to make him comfortable, make him feel seen, and make him feel visible. And since we're all M's friends sitting over here, no points for guessing who that was. This is my memory of Emily. This is what I know of her. And last year when I knew she was writing the book and she asked some of us to share these stories, I met her at a time when I will confess that I was going through a really deep physical injury in my life. For the last 8 years, I had sort of moved forward as the book shares and as she had shared from my music career, from composing and producing to starting Lembis with Remy, who got a big shout out from everyone else. Hi, Remy. But when Em reached out, I had to share with her that I didn't know how to talk about myself, that I was living different lives with different hats, and in between all of this, I'd been struck down with a very rare and early case of menopause, and I'd lost my mobility for the third time in my life. So playing the piano, walking, all these things that seemed very hard. And as Emily sat down and patiently started to ask me what I wanted to talk about, which is so rare in this world itself, she started to heal me by just talking about life, about work, about womanhood, about family, about friendship. And over the next few months, while she was writing her book, what she may not have realized was how cathartic an experience this was for me. I started writing this song a couple of years ago, but I only started finishing it as you started finishing the book, Em. I don't know what the title is yet. Wow. But we're just going to jam with it tonight. What I do know is that it's a song about love, because that's what Miss Emily Chang gives to all of us, whether it's in the spare room or whether it is with the lovely lady who sends me birds. Thank you so much, Amy. But this is what she gives to every single person who I know. And I wanted to write a song which talked about breath. Be my breath, I will be yours as we move into this dance of time. We'll let go one another's dreams, each other's fears. Together we would lie. Together we would lie. The night. If we find our way, we make it to the moon. If we find our way, we make it to the moon. If we find our way, we make it to the moon. If we find our way, we make it to the moon. Make it, make it, make it. The wind grows loud as we walk these clouds, finding traces in each other's voices. We'll let go. We could say no need to shout, no need to cry, only to be heard. If we find our way, we make it to the moon. If we find our way, we make it to the moon. If we
Is she still on for you? Okay.
make it, make it, make it to love you, love you, love you to the moon.
Yay!